Okay, I'll call this special city council meeting to order at 5:30. This is a special city council meeting of the Seward City Council, January 23rd, 2023. Chief, would you please lead us all in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have our acting city clerk today. Mr. Acting Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Okay, roll call. Finch.
Here.
Osenga.
Here.
Calhoun.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
Barnwell.
Here.
DeMoss.
Here.
And Mayor McClure.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum.
Thank you, and we're all here. We're at the point of citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. We have no public hearing. If you've signed in, you have the first opportunity to speak. You get 3 minutes per speaker and 36 minutes total. Mr. Acting Clerk, are there any sign-ins?
There's nobody signed in on the sheet.
Wow. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Well, that solves the problem of wondering how long we were going to have. Oh, do you want to speak? Sure. You can, you know the rule. I don't have to say it.
Linda Packcap, outside city limits. I currently am the vice chair of the PACAB board, and so we're here. We have 4 of us. We didn't need a quorum, but we had one for your discussion of PACAB. And I just am hoping that you will both renew your or renew the board for another year, but also consider giving us more not necessarily responsibility, but giving us some really meaty things to work on, right? We've done some really amazing stuff in the last couple of years, and I've been disappointed lately because I don't feel like we've been given the tasks that we could handle, and I think that we do have more interest on the board in being more involved in an advisory capacity. I think there's a lot of things, projects that could happen that that we could give you input on and do research for. I think you could take advantage of us and use us. So I'm looking forward to the discussion, and then I just would also say that no, that's it. That's this meeting. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak at this point? Sure.
Okay, these are not my reading glasses, so I won't read. Thank you, Council, Administration, Mayor.
We need your name.
Bruce Jaffa, outside the city limits, way outside the city limits. But that's part of the issue. PACAB, and I am a senior member on PACAB, gives me, as outside city limits, an opportunity to participate in an official way with city government. I have business dealings in Seward, have for many years. My kids all went to school and graduated here, and we've been to the sports events and socialized, but there's more that this town needs than that. And so the PACAB board gives us an opportunity as a group. It's an interesting group. There are people who have intimate knowledge of the harbor and the fishing community. We have a member, previous member Chrissy Terry, and current member Dwayne, are railroad people. So we have business people involved, and I think that's probably where I fit. I do like to fish, but I really don't know what the price of fish is. I don't understand all the wharfage stuff, but I work at it. But I do understand business, and I do understand it from a statewide perspective because our business is statewide. It's headquartered here in Seward, in the 2nd floor of the McMullen Building. We have crews currently all over the state of Alaska, and I interact with communities and business and some community people all over the state. I think that PACAB has a broad mandate. Under the charter, it's unspecific. The history of it that I got from Willard Dunham, and most recently from Darrell Schaefer-Meyer, is an outgrowth of a trade group And it came from a day when the railroad and the dock downtown dominated the community. After the earthquake, Willard and other community leaders said the town will never be monopolized by a single industry. And at the same time, PACAB took the opportunity to help broaden the commercial aspect of Seward. And it still does. Along with other things, we have led a charge in alternative energy on PACAB. There's no other board commission in the city that has their eye on that. The bidirectional meters, the solar panels, the heat loop project, and we can speak about that also. Those are all things that came out of PACAB. So I think PACAB has been a little outward directed, and I think we need, quite frankly, a change in leadership. I've asked the chair for her intentions. I have no response from her, and I have sent her a personal letter to resign, asking her to resign. I would ask council to advise PACAB what we can do if she does not resign in a timely manner, what we can do as a board to fill that position differently.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else? Boy, good timing, Bruce. Okay, seeing no one else wishing to speak, I move to the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and we go through the formalities. I'll need a motion and a second, please.
I'll move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, I believe we're ready to vote on that.
Okay, voting on the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. Osenga.
Yes.
Finch.
Yes.
Barnwell.
Yes.
DeMoss.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and there were no items on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. And so we move to new business, which would be to go into the committee of the whole, and I'll need a motion and a second to go into the committee of the whole.
Go ahead.
I move to go into the committee of the whole.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. The committee of the whole would discuss the roles and responsibilities of boards and commissions. Any discussion about that? Okay, we're ready to vote on that?
Okay, voting to move into the committee of the whole. Barnwell.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes.
Finch.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
DeMoss.
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, you are free to go into your committee of the whole.
Okay, just because I like to do it, boom, I'll gavel us in.
Okay, 5:38.
Others have been wanting to use this too, I've been noticing. Okay, so here we are, and our discussion will be about the roles and responsibilities of boards and commissions. We do have an outline, and I believe I'm turning it over to administration with
I'll start.
assist-
I'll start. Thank you first for this meeting and for the board's members in attendance. We really do appreciate it. As you, the Assistant City Manager will go into depth on this topic, but our intention is to really do what the agenda item states, is to outline the roles and responsibilities. And as you know in code, the boards actually boards, committees, commission belong to the council, and the staff assigned to it is through the city manager and the city manager's office and from there. So that's what we really wanted to talk about. They're your boards and commissions. We just help along with the process. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. And through my office, Stephen's really the point person for boards and commissions and has taken this on.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, just to reiterate what the city manager said, thank you to, I'm looking out into the audience, and we've got a really vibrant participation today from the board members and commissioners, which is awesome. This is one of the really, really rare opportunities where the council can interact with the boards and commissions. And like the city manager said, these board members and commissioners work for the city council, and although we pass a resolution annually for the boards and commissions on their priorities, it's in the 3 years I've been here, this is the first opportunity to really sit down as a group and talk. And I think for administration, a couple things. We're working on a lot of updates to city code. So Title II definitely needs some more updates. We updated the P&Z section recently, but we need to update HP and PACAB just with some current verbiage. And so we'll use tonight's feedback to look at some of the housekeeping items that need to be updated. And then really, I think for administration, it's hearing back to what Board Member Jaffa and Vice Chair Paquette mentioned, that what is it that you want these boards and commissions to be working on? Because they're here to serve and help with the city council business, and I'm hoping that tonight will be an education for everybody to help understand the roles and responsibilities, and then also kind of where do we go from here to assist in the work the council does. So we're going to start off with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'll turn it over to Jason Bickling. Bailey Saylor will then take the Historic Preservation Commission, and Norbury just will finish us up with Port of Commerce Advisory Board. So, Jason.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I've included in the packet, but I just kind of want to go over just some items in here. So kind of planning and zoning. Just, I know that some of you guys may or may not be as familiar with planning and zoning as others, but we do commission work on your behalf in regards to land use, code, city code, compliance, and actually changing city code, and code interpretation. So we the Title 15 is kind of obviously the document that we somewhat oversee and enforce when it comes to land use. And then the other kind of piece of what we do is that, or you guys can do through the commission, is to be shaping land use for the needs of the future by giving them priorities to change, like, hey, we need to look at this for our future when it comes to land use. We also oversee the Muni Land Plan, and then we do public hearings on the comprehensive plan. And so all those are kind of forward-facing documents for you guys to have input through the commission to kind of be building what we need for the future, not just right now, even though right now that compliance piece is kind of what we do right now. For those of you guys who don't know, we meet twice a month. The second Tuesday of the month is our regular meetings, when we have like scheduled things where we do things like preliminary plats, conditional use permits, variances, rezone applications, that type of thing. But then on the fourth Tuesday are our work sessions, and that's when a lot of the heavy lifting takes place. We have a lot of discussions. That's when we actually have most of the public show up and have input on what we're working on. And so they're just as the official business takes place on the regular meetings, but the work sessions are also really, really important. I did want to give you guys a few just kind of examples of the work that we do as far as the way that Title II applies to us. One of the things that says promote public interest and understanding of comprehensive planning, platting, zoning, and land management. We've updated our website pretty significantly this year, created more maps, and tried to have it more educational. Courtney, who's also here, she's created these really great brochures that are available digitally and physically for things like sign use, or what can you do in whatever zone that you live in. And so these are kind of some pieces. We're trying to help educate the community and help them understand, because code is just not easy to read sometimes. And then two, kind of just an example, I know you guys approved it, but we did when I say we, it's not like Courtney and I, it's our department and the commission together. We did a pretty heavy lift this year on the Muni Land Plan. It went from a very kind of flat document with a few pictures in the back to having like 85 maps, better descriptions, I think way better organization, and kind of an atlas, so it's easy to navigate, just that it becomes a useful document. And so, because we do want these things to be useful to you, but also to the public as well, so they can be understanding and looking at our land use and having input on those types of things. So, and also in the packet I did include kind of our 2022 council priorities that you guys approved. Just because I did put a few notes in blue on there, but we would just love to continue to get more input and regular feedback from you guys on how we can do the best job we can as a team with the commission. We do have Chair Sullivan and Commissioner Charbonneau here as well to be part of this conversation. So that's all I have. If anyone has any questions.
We can discuss. How do we want to do this? Just.
So, Madam Mayor, thank you. So our goal with the remainder of the portion here with P&Z would be to have council have an informal conversation with the commissioners about, what can they do to help with the work that council would like to see take place.
Could we real quick have the P&Z raise your hands just so we can locate you? Or they could move up, but there's only 3 seats. There's only 3 hands. That wouldn't be bad. There you go.
All right.
That's 2. So only 2 commissioners. Okay. Council, do you have any input? Yes, Councilmember Demas.
I'll start off if that's okay. I do have a couple of things. First, thank you so much for all the work that you guys do and for being here tonight. I've had a chance to talk a little bit with some of you about some of the concerns. I don't think that P&Z is necessarily a board or commission that we need to give more work to as council. I feel like they really get a lot thrown to them already, so I'm not sure that's the same as the other boards and commissions. A couple of, actually just kind of one main issue with P&Z is my concern is the lack of quorum. I worry about people expecting that there's a meeting and then some people not showing up. So I'd like to get that, kind of under control a little bit better, and I'm hoping that we can figure out some way to keep attendance and to communicate to commissioners when they are not showing up on a regular basis that it is becoming an issue, because those seats are being held by people that aren't showing up and they could be occupied by people that do want to do the job. So that would be my only concern. And my only other comment is that I really love the brochures and education element that you guys are bringing, because it is so complicated to read code. People don't know what they're supposed to do. And so I just want to continue to see more of that. But otherwise, that's kind of all I have.
Okay, thank you. We'll get some comments from council and then we'll go to other council members. Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, I'm new to this, but I find it really, like, we were in Juneau this last week and talking about some big projects, for instance, SMIC, secondary food security, that Seward might become a secondary port for food security, extension of the runway, big stuff, whether the ferry should be in here. And it seems like some of the discussion, it would be nice to have facts to back up. For instance, how long a runway do we need? What's the projection for that? And I don't know if planning and zoning is part of that. I would imagine it's planning. But how do you develop that vision? Who does the research for that? And how do we determine? For instance, the state right now has no idea of the Tuscaloosa. They're in a disarray, and they're getting a lot of money. And they're trying to figure out if the ferry would be an appropriate spot to come back to Seward. And I don't know, is that planning and zoning? Who does the research on that? And then how do we get those facts to we would get those facts to the state, but we need that background research for these kind of projects. And am I way off base here, or is that something that planning and zoning is tasked with?
Well, I mean, when we are working on something, we usually inquire for administration, and they will supply a packet of information that's pertinent to whatever we're doing at the moment. So I'm assuming it would be fairly similar in what you're speaking.
The same thing with the runway, the different categories, who owns what land, where, and everything else like this. I think there's going to be some discussions about the runway, the state use or the borough use, or however that was going to be transitioned out. And so the data comes to us in terms of who owns what, how long it is, what the needs are, because we're not technical, obviously. We're just citizens, sitting here and trying to hash through to try to determine what is the best course of action and then make a recommendation to the council.
Does that help?
Yeah.
So some of those issues are because it belongs to the state, and so I think with Chair Sullivan, is that they focus on the land use part of it, that where the city land and the zoning and that sort of thing. But as far as the other issues that we talked about in Juneau, as far as use of the airport, it is a state airport. So as you know, we're requesting them to review all of their data and regarding use. But where the planning and zoning comes in is more of the land use around it. Does that make sense?
It does, but it doesn't get to the vision. And we have to have that vision as a city just to fare what we need. I guess maybe it's community development adjacent. But how do we determine, I think comprehensive plan, strategic plans, but things are so dynamic in this day and age. Things are rolling fast, particularly in Alaska right now in the next few years. If we're on the front edge of these changes, if we have a strong vision of where we want to be, I think it would be to our benefit. We'd be much more organized in terms of pushing those things. And I don't know where that vision part comes from. I get the comprehensive plan, but that was, I think, finished in 17.
And we're reviewing that this year itself, and then thereby from that and where the town is going and what the direction is, whether it's through the legislature or otherwise, like the Tustamina and the rest, Ms. Stutes wanted to bring the Tustamina back here and the rest, but that is where the direction from the council should come to us and give us direction so we can prioritize what we plan, what we can do and plan to support the goals and the mission of whether it's the strategic plan or the comprehensive plan, or both.
I think, sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry. At the MLA conference this year, they talked, rather than have just one document that's static, that a comprehensive plan or a strategic plan would be dynamic and would be constantly revised and added to. Have we talked about that, or is that something?
That comprehensive plan, if I'm not mistaken, Jason, we're looking at that, it hasn't been looked at since 2017, and we're looking at it this year, and they're going to forward our recommendations to the council.
Madam,
Yes.
if I may, so I would, Director Bickling, to ask him, so some of the things that you're speaking of, that you drive that have been worked on in community development and planning and zoning, so some of the documents that you've been working on and updating, can you highlight?
Yeah, so kind of like community land plan had not been really looked at for a very long time, but it should be like a living, active document that has annual review because we live, like you said, in a very dynamic, changing world, especially since COVID. And so I think that's what we're looking at right now in conversations, that we want to get some. We have a public hearing scheduled this next month here for the comprehensive plan. I think that's kind of like the next right step to get that going, but we need to do the same thing with the comprehensive plan. Make that something that we look at every year. It's got to be living and active and useful so that we can be doing that. And then kind of the strategic plan is kind of like, comprehensive plan is kind of like our heart and soul. And I feel like the strategic plan is the way we're going to get there, or kind of like our vision, and the strategic plan is the way we're going to get there. And so once we kind of have our strategic plan, been doing some inside behind the scenes work on that, and that hasn't been updated since like the 90s. And so that's another one we're actually working in that right now to kind of like, where did we leave off, where are we going? And so right now we are doing a lot of behind the scenes work, but because I do agree that those documents are really important for us to kind of have, like, whether it's an anchor or a vision or guide to kind of get us to where we need to go.
And I would just add to that too, that our goal is to have the strategic plan and the comp plan really accompany each other and be a shorter duration time instead of a 13-year document, to have maybe like a 5-year comp plan that we would update in 2028 maybe, and then have the strategic plan be the operational document that comes underneath the comprehensive plan, where that comp plan is really, who does Seward want to be? Like, who does our community want to, what do we want to look like in 5 years? And then the strategic plan would be the operational document for us in terms of how do we check those boxes off.
Thank you, because that was going to be my question about both of those too. Where are we at? And I know you guys work hard on everything that you do, but these are real priorities, especially after seeing how things move so quickly sometimes. Other council members, do you have any input, questions, or anything? I'm concerned, along with Councilmember DeMoss, about attendance. And you do have here that if following a member's absence for 3 consecutive regular meetings in a 12-month period, the remaining commissioners can decide what to do about it, kind of deal, if they should be retained or not. Has anybody reached that level that you're aware of 3 consecutive meetings? And then, if not, and it's still a problem, maybe that should be changed to something a little more, maybe 2 consecutive, I don't know. Anyway, do you have a response to that?
I'm not sure, we have several, okay, you want that, Jason? Did you take?
I'll let you take it, I can answer it.
Back up on that. We've had several, early on, first off, when we came into the year, we had almost four vacancies anyway, so we had to fill those. And new commissioners came on, which is wonderful. Obviously, there's this very steep learning curve. I mean, I've only been on the commission for 2 years, so I really don't have a huge background. But the unfortunate thing is, in my, this is just my opinion on that, is when people schedule lengthy leaves. I mean, we had a couple of commissioners that would be gone, and they're no longer on the board, but they'd be gone 4 or 5 months out of the year. Well, and then they come back, and that I think is disruptive of the the flow of the organization and the folks that are trying to work together to move together, because not everybody, wherever they're at, are on the same sheet of music, and you really have to work as a synergistic group in order to move things forward in a positive way. So I guess we do have some. I don't think you can change 3 to 2, because I think Robert's Rules of Order says it's a 3.
I know.
Yeah, so I know. So that was my thought too, but yeah, I looked that up. So anything on that, Jason? Anything else?
Yeah, one of the things that we figured out with that 3 consecutive absences from meetings, it doesn't say work sessions, and so basically we figured out that you could attend 1 meeting, miss 2, attend 1 meeting, miss 2, so you can make 4 regular meetings a year and still not get, and still like be kind of in compliance with that. And so we had some, actually we had some conversations about that, and really we'd like to look at changing the language and say, hey, look, create the concept of an unexcused absence and excused absence. Like right now we have a commissioner who's dealing with a family issue, and he's in great communication, and we don't want to hold that against him, and that's like, it's not a problem. He misses a few meetings, I'm good. And then I think we need to have we need to come up with some definitions for unexcused absences and excused absences, and kind of create a limit on work sessions and regular meetings and that type of thing too. And so just so that way it's easier to hold people accountable that way. But you're exactly right, and it's a very big frustration of ours too when we do all the posting and get all the packets put out and then come down here and then it's like, oh, I guess we're pushing this business off for another 2 weeks or a month or whatever that is, and so it is frustrating.
So would this be the kind of thing where, like, as of now, council could agree to sort of direct you guys to come up with a plan that's better and then bring it back? I don't know, I mean, we could suggest that? Because I think and give you more work to do. Because it is an issue. We had that sort of thing with council a bit, but things have gotten normalized. I think part of it was COVID and this and that. I'm sorry.
I have a question for Jason and Sullivan.
Yeah, Councilman.
The ones that are missing, are they year-round locals or are they snowbirding? I'd heard that some were snowbirding. That's what I mean, I fully agree and understand family issues. I mean, we all understand that.
Right.
But if you're snowbirding, why are you on a board in Seward?
And that is an issue of tension. I think that's been an issue of tension on the planning and zoning for a long time. We do have some of that, and then we do have people that just don't make it. So.
Councilmember Demas?
Would it be best to have some sort of a little bit of flexibility in that, and I guess you'll be bringing the language back to us so we can discuss it a little bit more, but I do know that there are some commissioners that have to go work for a few weeks, and then they'll stay in touch, and they'll, but then there's some commissioners that maybe are gone doing the snowbird thing, for example, and maybe don't stay in touch. So I feel like there maybe needs to be some sort of flexibility on your end, and when there becomes an issue that needs to be dealt with, maybe then it comes our way or something like that. Is that where you're kind of at?
Yeah, and it's like we have people that have more seasonal type jobs, and that's never really an issue. If they say, hey, I'm going to be on a job for this next work session, they're usually always really good to communicate that to us,
right?
Which is the big thing. It's like the surprises, the things that really bite us.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like we're pretty reasonable with all that, but yeah, we do need to, we'll do a better job communicating to you too in attendance and that type of thing, because that would be helpful so that you guys can see that.
Thank you. Other questions from council? Comments? Councilman
I just have a statement. I just want to say thank you for all the work that you guys put into on the nightly lodging process. I know that, I can only imagine how intense that was, and I thank you for the group meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, and so I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciated it. Thank you.
Others from council? How about you guys? Do you have any questions, comments for us?
Not really. I mean, I do think we need to tighten up this, people making the meetings, and I think we'll probably get some wording together, and you guys can take a look at it. We do need to make some changes, definitely. But besides that, just keep the jobs coming, and we'll just keep knocking them out.
I'd like to offer props to Jason and his crew on getting stuff together, because they're the ones who are doing the yeoman's work on all of this stuff and put these humongous packets together, and the mapping and everything else. It's a phenomenal amount of work that they do. And the clerk's office that puts up with us and keeps us in line with Robert's Rules of Order, because that sometimes can be a unique opportunity to fail. But in spite of it all, like I said, we had seven commissioners, but we had 4 that are brand new. And, they're just trying to adjust and learn and everything else like this. And, given all of that, and I went through, and you all have seen it, but it's, we had 7 replats in the last year, approved 7 CUPs, we had 3 rezones, postponed 3, but approved 1 later in January, which was a code language consideration. And there was only 1 failed rezone and replat, and I guess another rezone and a replat for, it was the Dairy Hill area. And the amount of work sessions that we've had, that people have worked really well together, and they've tried to, move the mission forward and try to get things going for the town. And reflecting back on the conversation, but if you don't have a commissioner, it slow drags everybody, because we're sort of like the head of the train and trying to push the stuff out of the way to some extent. But having the comprehensive plan and the direction, because otherwise you're playing whack-a-mole if you're not. So if we have a focus and a direction, whether it's the comprehensive plan and the operational aspect of the strategic plan, gives us direction, and then we can just knock it out, and we'll all be walking in lockstep in the right direction.
Okay, well, thank you. We really appreciate you guys. I began my meteoric rise to fame on planning and zoning. As soon as I moved back, I think it was late 2007 I got on, so that's how it all began.
Was that when you were just done being a track star?
I was, yes, just about then. And I have thoughts of someday when I'm not up here going back to planning and zoning to give that. So, I mean, it's an intriguing thing. I love that stuff. So,
a lot of detail.
Anyway, Mr. Bickling, do you want to, we have closing comments from administration, so, and then we'll move on to the next if there's no other stuff.
I do want to say thank you to our commissioners, because they do a lot of good work, and they have really meaningful conversations, and they dig into subjects and ask hard questions, and they're not afraid to, I feel like we have sometimes in media it gets portrayed that we don't work well together, but we actually really do, and it's great when they're like, I don't agree with that, I think we should try something out, that's a good thing to have, and I think we trust each other, and so I'm really thankful for Claire's leadership, Chair Sullivan's leadership, but I really do appreciate that. That's not, leading in that capacity it's an undertaking, and so I just appreciate the faithfulness of those people who are showing up and really being thoughtful and doing the good work. So. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, and I believe we're ready to move on to HP. Bailey, do you want to? How many historic pres commissioners do we have in here?
I think I'm in.
You're all of them? Do you want to come up, Sue, and sit at the big table and we can look at you? Okay. You're representing a whole group.
Well, just as a way of explanation, Tanguy Lebrecht is our chair, and he's the executive director of the statewide Red Cross, and he's traveling for work. Mary Ann Benoit is the president of Rotary, and she's going to Guatemala. So she's trying to get some loose ends tied up. Where Donna and Art Lemaster, I don't know, but I do know the 2 contacted me and arranged for me to be here.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, Bailey, do you want to introduce this one?
So this year, Tanguy came in, he's our new chair, and we've been doing things differently as far as our meetings. Instead of meeting once a month, we're only meeting 4 times a year unless there's a special meeting that needs to be done. The HP was created in 1995 by the City of Seward, which that's when we became a certified local government under the National Historic Preservation Act, administered by the Alaska Office of History and Archaeology. The city established the HP by Ordinance 9510. Historic preservation is necessary to promote the education, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the community by providing a mechanism to identify and preserve the distinctive historic and architectural characteristics of Seward, which represent the elements of the city's cultural, social, economic, political, and architectural history. Our powers and duties, according to code, is to develop a local historic plan that will include provisions for identification, protection, interpretation of the area's significant resources. Such a plan is to be compatible with the Alaska Historic Preservation Plan and to produce information compatible with and for the Alaska Heritage Resource Survey. Survey and inventory community historic, architectural, and archaeological resources within the community. Review and comment to the State Historic Preservation Officer on all proposed National Register nominations for properties within the community area. Act in an advisory role to other officials and departments of local government regarding the identification and protection of local historic and archaeological resources. Work toward the continuing education of citizens regarding local historic preservation and community history. We also do that with our Facebook. We've got a pretty active Facebook, and I've been very surprised at our reach that we have, and I feel like they've done a phenomenal job just trying to help people understand what it is HP does and why it's important. And then we support the enforcement of the Alaska Historic Preservation Act 4135, and then review local projects and recommendations about the effect on properties identified in the local historic preservation inventory.
Thank you. Questions from council about historic pres or comments?
I'm not scary.
Well, I know that, and you know, that people confuse Resurrection Bay Historical
Right.
Society, of which I'm the current president, and historic preservation, always, one being, we're a nonprofit that has the museum contents, and then this HP, and that's always an issue. But the assumption from people, and this is just kind of a general question, once I had described this to them, is that you guys, HP, is more concerned with preservation of buildings and properties, and the RBHS is more contents of a museum, like artifacts and stuff. Is this a valid statement? I'll ask either of you guys.
I agree. When I found some things in the wall of my house, I took them right over to the museum, because I felt that any Seward history, they're going to take better care of it than I would in a shoebox. But we have some really significant and beautiful buildings, and one of the things as a certified local government entity, we have access to grants. And that was one of the things that my dream is to kind of come up with a grant library. Historic buildings can be expensive, but there's money available. So if we start a library, if we can steer money to folks who have those buildings, we can help defray costs and preserve more and more of those buildings. The building that comes to mind for me right now is St. Peter's. That building, if you look at it very closely, that's fallen apart. And we need to, that's right high priority on our list to see if we can get some grants. Part of the other trouble in Seward in particular is finding a contractor who will do it. That contractors, I know, I've been looking for one myself, but historic buildings have access to money. We just have to connect the dots. And that was part of Seward applying as a certified local government entity. I don't know if you've seen the walking signs around town. That was a $30,000 grant that we got from the state to put that in. And they don't understand why we don't get more. We got tired. Part of the trouble was that took thousands of hours. But we're on the radar again to apply for some additional monies. But we'd like to have some things to steer it to, buildings. There's also several other grant organizations that do matching funds. KMTA comes to mind, Kenai Mountain Turnagain Armed Heritage Area. We got a grant for the passenger depot because they were having some rot underneath the building. Some of the big beams were rotting. So we had to redirect, put in a retaining wall. So unfortunately, historic properties require maintenance, but the flip side is there's some money out there. We just have to connect it to people.
Just as an aside, one of the things I find wonderful is so many members of historic preservation come to our RBHS meetings and participate fully. So there's two groups interested in history.
It's all history.
Coming from different directions. But
with the walking signs, and I'll just throw this out, with the walking tour, we focus less on the buildings because everybody, people know about Brown and Hawkins, they know about, St. Peter's, but we focused on the people. And we found some really interesting facts. And so I also, through RBHS, I volunteer at the museum. We keep the museum open on Sundays. And I can't tell you, I've gotten thank you notes of people that have come in from out of town, from Anchorage, and I can spout this stuff off because I spent hours buried in it. But it's really interesting. Seward has a fabulous history, and the people are pretty impressive.
thank you. Council, do you have any questions, comments? Councilmember Barnwell, and then we'll...
Is there any infrastructure money that's allocated for historical?
Not that I know of. Not that I'm aware of.
Just curious, have you reached out to, has the Episcopal Church interested?
That's one of the discussions we're having. That's a discussion item, but no answer yet. They probably have money.
Councilmember Wells?
I just want to say thank you for the walking tour. Not only do I enjoy it, but every time I have friends and family in town and we go check it out, they're just like, wow, this is really incredible. And I already realized that Seward was an amazing place, but for them to be able to see these bits and pieces of history around town, it's great. So
We dug up some very interesting facts,
Wow,
and we've
yeah.
got more. What was really gratifying to us is that when we put out the survey for people who wanted to be on the tour, we had like 90 applicants. So, and we only had enough money for 26 signs. And we found out a lot of information about properties. We need to find out more information. For example, there's a property on 2nd Avenue. It was moved from the line. It was owned by Dutch Emma. She was a well-known madam. It was moved from the line right next to the Harrison Bank manager's house. There's a story there. How did she do that in the 30s? That's what I want to know. So there's more out there. We will dig it up. One of the things we're very good at is research. So if you've got a question about a property, don't hesitate to call us or ask us, because we dig into that. We've got a whole slew of people that know a lot about the history of Seward.
Thank you. Other questions for our representative? Okay. Did you have anything else you want to say?
No, I really appreciate the support. It's something that I feel really excited about. This is an interesting town, and there's a reason people come here. And there's a lot more to know about this town.
Madam City Manager, is there anything?
That's okay. I just wanted to comment on the walking tour, and I agree. People love the walking tour, so thank you all the work you did in it. And we have another project that we're working on that we're discussing today, like the signage for the walking tour, kind of using that as a prototype for another project. So building off of what you guys have done. So.
And just one of the things that we did do is on the chamber window and on the library museum window is I don't know what you call it, it's a decal. Because, you know, we go through 100,000 maps with tourists, and that's a lot of money, and it's a waste. So we've got a decal that you can clip with your phone, and you can pull the map up. All of the walking tours also have QR codes, so we're trying to reduce the waste. And you might want to talk to Mary Ann. I'm sure she could, Mary Ann Benoit worked with the sign person, and they were real good, and knew exactly what they were doing. So if you're planning to do a similar project, I could highly recommend Mary Ann as an advisor, and she can tell you all about the sign people.
Okay.
They were good.
Thank you. Is anything else? We keep missing people. Okay, do you want to wrap it up for
Yes, ma'am. The other thing that I'm kind of surprised she didn't mention about the walking tour is anybody that was near or had a house, they spruced their house up, and then they came to them to ask them what the colors would have been during that time period, and then painted their house according to what that would have been in a lot of areas. So that was pretty cool. So we are in need of 2 more commissioners, and our next meeting is the first Thursday in April.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts at 6 o'clock with the work session, followed by the meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I
I will see
obviously
you-
have a fondness for history. So.
And I'll see you Thursday.
Yeah, and I'll see you at our meeting on Thursday. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Port and Commerce. Getting Norm up here. And we've got a few Port and Commerce people, and he brought an extra chair, so if you guys want to come into the inner circle here.
You can sit at the end so the devil can't get you in the corner, okay?
There you go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Kind of a description what PACAP's been doing in the past is, you know, so we've been working on the harbor tariff, some chamber marketing, the SMIC development plan, some utility infrastructure, our priorities, the vessel property tax, of course the harbor plan, capital improvement plan, fisheries, and some of the other things they've done in the past is like working on the washdown pad, the northeast and the south launch ramps, a lot of work there. We also looked at airport issues, a lot of airport issues, a lot. And just look at our harbor, a lot of work that they've done, them and previous commissioners. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Council, we'll turn it to you with questions for PACAP members or comments. Anybody got anything?
I was just gonna, one more.
Or,
I was just gonna, sorry,
Norm
I was
will
gonna touch up
continue to
on
talk
some of
if you
the
want.
meeting frequencies. So we meet the first Wednesday every month,
Yes, sir.
and we usually have a work session on the third Wednesday. We didn't have one last month because nothing set, we didn't have a quorum. We have, most of the time we have a quorum, and we also go into hiatus in the summertime for like June, July, August.
Okay. Questions, comments from council? I am concerned about the chair. Someone should reach out and find out if she's actually moved away or is, you know.
I
maybe
do
no more.
believe she's in the process of moving, and what she said to me on the dais, but not on the record, at the last meeting, was that she wouldn't be here for this, and I don't think she'll be here for the February meeting. And that she is moving away. So I don't know when she plans to step down, but I do believe that is her intention.
Okay. Is anyone a bit concerned? What concerns,
So
Norm,
Madam Mayor,
you're just
touch
not
up on
gonna
that.
quit.
So they
are you?
actually have a contract, so the company she works with has a contract until March.
Oh.
So I imagine she'll be here until March.
So there will be a transition at some point, I would presume.
Maybe we can advertise before.
If I might, there's several things I'd like to touch on, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
First thing, of course, is Chair O'Regan, Humdale O'Regan, is in a difficult part of her life, like all of us. Her job is in jeopardy, where she lives is in jeopardy. She doesn't know exactly what her next step is. She came to this board with the idea that it was a fish board. And it was just to deal with harbor tax and harbor issues, and was somewhat surprised that there was a broader mandate, broader activity. I don't think she ever came to terms with that, quite frankly. And as I said earlier in my comments, I have tried several things to reach her. And she travels, God bless her, and I think she's out of touch, out of contact. I think there needs to be a mechanism for removal. I heard an earlier comment about another board and vacancies and absences. The PACAP board, to my knowledge, in the last 10 years, has only missed one meeting because of a quorum issue. It was because of a resignation. It was a short board, and of course COVID interfered with everything to some degree. It's at least a good thing to blame. That was the only meeting that we didn't have a quorum at. We have met for work sessions, for regular sessions, 9 months a year. That's 18 meetings for at least 10 years that I've been on the board. I think we've done a lot of work. I think there's more we can do. I think our previous chair, Laura Snyder, was very, very dynamic. And of course, before that, Christy Terry, and Deb Aldermont, and Daryl Schaefer-Meyer, all very, very dynamic people. The short stint that I was on the board, I tried to fill their shoes. And in that time, we had an opportunity to do a lot of work. I never lacked for support from the board or quorum. We're a diverse group with a lot of talent. So that said, on the back of the letter that I sent earlier today, there is an outline of somewhat how we got to where we are and where we might go. PACAB's the only group that's strictly an advisory group. Planning and Zoning and P&Z are both commissioners. They take and act as resolutions that you then can take up and defeat or pass along, modify. With PACAB, we're only advising you. So we establish priorities and have for years established priorities that the council has had the opportunity to accept and has in most cases. And that's what we work on. And sometimes things come up in the process. We still are able to do that. The things that we've done have been novel. Some novel, other like solar energy. As a result of solar energy, as a result of the PACAB board, there are nearly 100 meter swaps in Seward for people moving towards solar energy, the contribution to the grid with solar energy. That's a net positive for all of us, not just the city, the utility, but all of us as citizens of the country. Another simple thing we did was advocate for a 5-ton crane. That came from users of the harbor. It didn't come out of the air. It came from people that said, we don't want to be tied up with going to Seward Fish or whatever they call themselves now. You know, that was the one dock in town or the one place that had a crane. They wanted other options. We advocated for that. We got it put into capital projects. We did everything we could with the harbor master. And let me just take a quick aside. You don't even need this board. You have a harbor master and a harbor commission that can handle this. As far as these, we are just looking over what they're doing. There's other things that PACAB can do for you. And that includes looking into the future. To some degree, the brainstorming that PACAB does is looking into the future. I love the past. We own a 1929 building with the sign that benefited from the historical group. I understand planning, I understand zoning, but I want to know where Seward's going to go. I know to some degree where it's been. I want to know where it's going to go and how we're going to get there. And the PACAB board can help you with that. Well, it's been a pleasure to serve on the PACAB board. My term is up in 2024. As things were going this last year, I wasn't sure I was going to last that long because the downward trend in mission, I'm not going to come to town for a half-hour meeting. I got plenty of other things to do with my time. But if it takes me an hour to drive to town, I'd at least like to do something of value. And I think everyone else. We take a hiatus in the summer because some people have big businesses. But we meet the rest of the year, and people like Ben and the rest of us want to contribute and do our part. Now, if there's something that comes up, like the assistant manager came to us a year ago in the spring of 2022 saying we got a housing issue, can you look at it? We did what we could. That's maybe not enough, and it's still ongoing. And the resolution, quite frankly, from my perspective, is not just your reclassification of property. It's a much bigger issue. It's going to take Tugget's and Peterson, others building houses. That's the only solution, private sector, only solution. Could PACAP help move that along? Maybe, but we need the nudge. Now, so I think, frankly, the issue about tenancy and vacancies, so if that's a code issue, 3 consecutive meetings is not right. I've chaired a lot of boards in my life, one way or another, and I could agitate somebody to get off a board much quicker than that. And quite frankly, if you don't have time to serve, let somebody else do it. I think Councilmember Wells said that. Let someone else give the opportunity. And quite frankly, at my age and my service, I wonder if I should step aside and find somebody else. Christy Terry says find a replacement and move on. Well, I'm ready to move on. So if any of you know somebody that's interested, send them my way. That's what I have. I really appreciate serving on this board and offering what I can to the city of Seward. I appreciate what you folks do. You have a full board tonight. You know, that's not all the time. You know, and the new members that I've just met, you know, thank you very much. This is a great city with a great future, one of the best in the state, if not even broader than that. But it's not going to get into the future by accident.
Thank you, Bruce. Council, do you have anything to say? Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like the opportunity to say something too.
Yeah, I was just...
First off, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve as an advisory board member of the city council and the citizens of Seward. I've been on for 5 years, so I'm the second oldest. And I've seen a lot of changes. We've been challenged, and at the same token, it seems to be a downward trend. I talked to Norm, actually texted him when he got back. I saw he was back, and I said, how'd it go in Juneau? He said, good. And then Mr. Barnwell throws a few little tidbits out there that intrigue me about potential and dynamic growth. So I'm coming out to you. If you want me to stay on this board, you need to challenge me. You need to give me a direction. You need to provide me with information that will help me advise you on the growth of this community. I don't like being left in the dark at times. You know, it takes a long time sometimes for information to come down to us about what's going on, what our leaders have seen or communicated with higher representatives of government. So please, challenge us, use us.
Thank you. Yeah, Linda.
I agree with both Carl and Bruce. It is an honor, a real honor to be able to serve on this board, especially because I do live outside the city limits. And we haven't had any conversations real recently about that, but those of you that can remember a few years ago, we actually had discussions about ways that we could include more input from the people that do live outside the city limits, because that number has grown and grown and grown. And it's not reasonable to think that in terms of government that we're going to go talk to the people in Soldotna, because the government that impacts us is the one that's happening here within the city limits. And so it's a real honor to be able to serve on this for me personally. I have a couple of suggestions. There are a lot of projects. We worked on the airport it kind of made me sick to my stomach when you were asking me questions, because we worked on the airport, and we had an airport committee, of which many of the people on this board were on that airport committee, and we did a lot of the stuff that you were asking about. And, you know, that committee, the airport committee was sanctioned by council, and I think it was sanctioned for a year, and then council felt that they didn't need the airport committee anymore. Let's resurrect the airport committee if we need it, right? I mean, they're not just even people on PACAB, but there are people in this town that care so much about what happens to that airport. And the state is, I don't want to use that word, the state has never listened to us, is really the truth of that. So that's a whole nother, I don't want to get off on the airport, but, so use us for the airport if you need help with the airport. One suggestion I have, I know we're talking about attendance. I wonder if you couldn't consider what Kenai and Soldotna did after COVID. They didn't get rid of the ability to attend remotely. And rather than making it harder for people to participate, maybe we should be talking about making it easier for people to participate. You know, I have a lot of medical stuff in front of me, and I schedule it away from these Wednesdays, but I can't guarantee that I can always do that. And that would put me in a position where, you know, maybe I have to be up there for a pre-op. Well, I could attend virtually, I could attend through Zoom or MS Meetings or Teams or whatever you want to use. So I just really encourage council, you're going through code, you're making changes, maybe this is a time to really think about, make it easier for people. I'm not talking about making it easier for snowbirds. I'm not talking about making it easier for people, you know, that don't live here to attend. But if you have a residency or a, you know, some kind of requirement, I think making it easier would be better. And then the other thing, the other suggestion is, I would like to suggest that we get rid of work sessions entirely and switch everything to either a regular meeting or a special meeting with a committee of the whole. Because the whole business with this work session, you have to have a quorum anyway, so you still have to have a quorum, you still need admin, you still need a packet, you have to put all this stuff together. But if you have it as the kind of meeting we're having tonight, you can take action when you're done. And it would tighten things up, and it would cut down on these long pauses in between getting things legislated. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, good suggestions. Did you have something?
Absolutely, thank you, Madam Mayor. The comment about the work sessions, I think for PACAB is particularly relevant because we are an advisory committee, so having the ability to agree on advice and send it to council after every meeting just simply makes sense. We're not doing anything more than that, so that would be a really nice thing, the committee of the whole, and bring people in. I would like to point out some of the things that the work that Board Member Jaffa has mentioned that we have done. One of the opportunities it gives is to really flesh out things like the housing situation, where we had a series of speakers come in and be able to present their issues and how that affects their ability to attract employees and maintain. That's something that isn't done anywhere else. And then even with the harbor plan, to be able to get into the details in a public hearing setting where it's on the record, it's been discussed, this is open government. Anybody that wants to see it can get on YouTube and see, you know, where we were and where we've been. I'm very proud of the work that we did with the utility manager to be able to invite them in and get net metering in Seward going. I think our group, it might have happened without us, but I think we were a big part of it. And that's definitely one of the highlights that I'd like to point out. Other than that, I think everything that's been said I agree with. I would council, we are working at your direction, and we set our agenda and we follow our agenda, but there's nothing in between. Maybe there's some communication with the chair, the vice chair, but I feel like a little more interaction during the year would be very helpful. It's halfway through my second term, and I really appreciate the ability to participate in this board. Thank you.
Thank you. I hear that about the communication. That's really valid. Linda?
I just had one last suggestion, and that is, one of the things that I'm always wanting to talk about is the wastewater treatment situation in town, especially as we keep talking about adding more houses and more houses. And I have heard that there is some agreement that a new wastewater treatment facility might be appropriate. Let us do the research. Have us, look at the different forms. What, where might we put it? What kind might it be? Those kinds of things.
Thank you. Did you want to?
Yeah, Board Member Walker would like to speak.
Oh, yeah. You've got.
Right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a minute. We're all volunteers. We don't get paid. And we really work at your discretion. We work for you. And we need your support to be successful. So if you want a good commission, you need to support us. And that's pretty much all I got to say. The commission gives you a tool. It gives the public a good way to get in between city council meetings to vent issues and to get their opinions out through our commission, and then we kind of vet it a little bit too and then send it on to you. It's a good tool for you guys if you want it. So that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, Chris.
Two things we haven't discussed briefly. Well, sort of did. I was the chair of the airport committee. There were 7 of us. We met diligently. I take seriously the Port and Commerce Commission is port. It's not just boat port, it's airport. When in the comments before the next meeting, I will have something to say about resolutions on the table, but we did spend a lot of time with the airport. I was in the room where it happened, where the FAA and state and Norm was as well, and they pretty much just put the kibosh on it. But at that point, we had a city manager that wasn't fully with the city, quite frankly. I don't think that's the case now. But at that point, and that was when the decisions had to be made, we were in a transient interim period. The second thing is, I heard comment, or I've seen comments about how the ad hoc heat loop advisory committee, which is a subset of PACAB, that was set up by council, would report. I think the comment I saw was, will we ever hear from them? And I think the resolution was, well, when they're done. You deserve and need an update, and I can give you a brief overview. I am on that ad hoc committee along with board member emeritus Schaefer-Meyer, who should be at this table as well. But we have met over the last year with the administration's help, both financial and in a brainstorming way, to apply for a grant which has been submitted. And the first stage of that grant will not build the heat loop. The first stage of that grant, and that's right now being considered for approval, will fund an outreach. There'll be training at AvTech. There'll be a number of things that would lay the groundwork and allow that same grant to go to phase 2, which would be construction money. But that likely won't happen until late 23 or 24. We are looking for other funding mechanisms. Recorder Tugas is instrumental in this. We have some active members. Many of them travel, but Mary and I and others are diligently looking for additional grants. We're going to make this happen. It's a tremendous project. It's a groundbreaking project. It's a banner project, but it's not easy. So just because you're not hearing anything, don't believe that it's not being worked on.
Okay, thank you. I'm watching the clock here,
Yeah.
too. So, any other comments from council? Yes, Councilmember
I'm sorry, I apologize for being
No problem.
so naive. You guys, you know, it's obvious you really care what you're doing, and believe me, the rest of our group in June was not as naive as I was. We really pushed hard on DOT. We talked a lot about that airport, and most of the complaints or the frustration was the lack of communication on DOT's part. And there was a lot of pressure put on DOT on the part of the city for that project at the airport. So, sorry if I got you agitated.
We can't always get what we want.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I, Madam, if I may, just quickly add that there will be the public hearing tonight, but requested that the council postpone action on that resolution because we've asked the DOT to go back and look at things. So
We'll offer you more money.
We're going to be hearing that. Okay, I kind of want to wrap this up. One quick thing.
I'd like to say thank you for what you guys are doing. Don't step down, hang in there, and we'll try to come up with more stuff.
Thank you. Councilmember
Thank you.
Claus.
Thank you so much for all of you for being here and being so committed, and I love that your biggest complaint is that you don't have enough work to do. That's just really admirable, and I want to apologize for that if we haven't given you enough work to do on the airport issue. It really has something that's just kind of re-bloomed. I've been a part of these conversations in Juneau, and it wasn't on our priorities. It's something that other people want to talk about all of a sudden, and so I do like the idea of reviving a committee. I think we need to talk about that and figure out exactly how we want to approach that, but that was I don't think anyone was trying to hide it. It just kind of came up all of a sudden. So please don't take offense that you didn't know about that specific issue. Gosh, I think that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Regis, do you want to wrap that up?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just want to say, thanks to all the current and past board members that did so much work. And like I said, take a look at our harbor. I think we're the first harbor in the state that's completely redone. So it's all new. So I think that had a lot to do with, all the way back when Derek was running around. So anyways, thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'll bring us out of the committee of the whole, and we're back into a regular meeting. We're still meeting. We have a segment here for citizens' comments. I'll just ask if there's anyone that wants to comment on this portion of the evening. Give you one more chance. Yeah. We're watching a timeline though, so.
I'm gonna be quick.
Okay.
The risk of being considered a Seward fossil. Daryl Schaefer, I'm a 70-year resident of Seward, and I appreciate all of you folks here. I think you're a good council and a good administration. I appreciate all you do, and you're wonderful, and your services are very valuable to this community. And I mean it sincerely, having been in your chairs and in your roles and various things over my life. But quickly, I took a look at what's at your website about the Port and Commerce Advisory Board. It doesn't comport to what you had in your handout today in your code. I don't know when this was written, but you're not a harbor port commission. You're much more than that, and I think you need to take a look at what the differences are, what you state you are, that this board is on your website as opposed to what's in the city code, because it's not the same. And I wanted to point that out to you tonight. Quickly, I think you folks are, I think you're in some wonderful times, but you've got some challenges ahead of you. This community's got to do something about that which lays the golden egg, and that's the sport fishery here. Your silver salmon run is declining rapidly, and it may be because of forces that you can't control, but it's going to take some investment in money to keep that fishery dynamic and alive, because it literally is the goose that lays the financial golden egg to this community. And I can say that with some years of experience. Point that out to you. Something else, I think you have some crisis ahead of you with respect to public safety in town. You have a
a police department that is moving into retirement substantially with some of your key employees, you are not able to recruit, not the way things are today. You're not competitive with the communities that are on the peninsula, recruiting police officers. You have some things. You need to be looking, I think, at perhaps some service areas for some of the, not for police, I'm suggesting, but maybe perhaps for your EMS program, maybe fire, maybe it's time to look at that, and also for perhaps hospital, public health. I throw that out to you. That's something that you could ask PACAB to spend time on and work on some of that with your very able administration. And I'll shut up. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Okay, I'll bring it back to council and administration comments and responses. Administration, do you have any items?
I would just say thank you to council, and again, thank you to the boards and commissions, and it's definitely good feedback, so thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Barnwell, any comments?
Again, apologize for how naive I am, and it's really cool to see the passion that so many of you are displaying. It's obvious you really care about what you're doing, and being in Seward Juneau last week, seeing the energy of the projects that are happening, that are coming up quick in Seward, and then talking to Juneau about that. It's a pretty exciting time. I agree with Mr. Schiefelmeyer that I think it's an exciting time to be in Seward, and it's really awesome that we have volunteers like you guys that are willing to really help us out. So thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Finch.
I appreciate what you guys do. Continue doing it. Let's see if we can't come up with some extra stuff for you to do.
There you go. Councilmember Wells.
I'll reiterate, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Councilmember Calhoun.
They said it all.
All right. Councilmember DeMoss.
Thanks so much, everyone. That's all.
Well, you guys are brief. Vice Mayor Osenga.
Yep, it's been said. Thank you, guys.
Okay, and they said it all. This was a very useful time, and appreciate all that you guys do. And with that, I'll adjourn this special meeting at 6:47, and our next regular meeting will commence at 7. You're on time.